Welcome back to the RSKI channel, everyone. I'm Riley, and today, this episode is called Preserving a Legend. I'm gonna put this one back to stock, take it to Nebraska. I'll probably make a whole video about that, so make sure you subscribe to this channel and you'll see me put it in a little Nissan hatchback. I'll probably have to take all the seats out, but it's gonna be a fun trip. That'll be a video coming very soon once this build is done. These Superjets are getting really hard to find these days, and when I say preserving a legend, basically I just mean protecting this ski from me. I just don't want to destroy it in the surf, and it's just a matter of time until eventually it just wears on them. That's what I'm building the 2015 hull for, is just ride it as hard as I can, no limitations, and then keep this one so I just have it forever. Right now, the engine compartment is completely empty, and if you were with us in the last video, you saw all of my tips and tricks on bilge pump install and everything to keep your ski above water in the surf. Right now, I've got a single bilge installed with a stock siphon, and that's the setup this is going to have when it goes to Nebraska. For this build, I'm just using the OEM Superjet motor mounts. I think they're going to be just fine in this application. So let's get those in and see how it looks. Right now I'm just tightening the bolts like finger tight, just so it can slide around a little bit. Once we get the engine on, we can kind of make sure we have them where we want them. And I always make sure to use a red Loctite on these bolts, just like the manual says. Now that the motor mounts are in, now I have to figure out how to get the engine in. You can definitely pick up the engine and get it in there by yourself, but I don't want to smash any fingers or anything. So let's see if I can do it by hanging it from the ceiling. So now I've got the engine installed. I did it by myself. Probably not a good idea. Anyway, it's in now. And the first thing I do to prepare for engine alignment is to remove the rubber damper from the coupler. The reason I do this is it just makes checking alignment easier, and this is a really tight fit, so it might not be aligned properly if you have this in and you can't even tell. Once I get it aligned, I slide the engine forward, keeping all the shims in place, and then I install the damper and push the engine back onto the coupler and start tightening things down. I just got everything lined up where it's nice and concentric, everything is parallel, and the gap is where I want it. And now it's time to take the shims out and keep track of exactly where they were, remove the motor mount bolts, slide the engine forward, install the rubber damper, and now's a good time to connect the cooling lines as well. Usually I would rejet the carburetors outside of the ski, but I forgot. So before I bolted down the engine, I remembered that I needed to rejet these because I removed the B-pipe and it's also going to a little bit higher elevation. So I'm putting it back to 130 on the main and 70 on the pilot jet. And as you can see, I'm doing it in the engine compartment. So I rejetted the carburetors and I went ahead and tidied up, or at least figured out how to plug in all the bilge system, so that I don't have to do that with the engine in place. I mounted the E-box and ran the cooling lines, everything's hooked up, and now I'm ready to slide the engine forward. Since I figured out the shims already for aligning the engine, I can go ahead and put the rubber damper in right now, and this will be the last time we have to have the engine out. So I'm going to pick it up, slide it forward, and then I'm going to put the shims back in where I had them. Alright, the engine is in, the motor mounts are all tight, everything is torqued properly, 17 Newton meters on the motor mount bolts, and there's one very important piece left. Don't forget your coupler cover, because your cooling line, well mine anyway, is laying right on top of the coupler. So the coupler cover keeps it safe from getting wrapped up in the coupler and destroyed. So I made the mistake of putting in the e-box before I put the coupler cover on. I made it work, but I would recommend doing it in the opposite order. Put the coupler cover on and then bolt the e-box in place. Much easier. I'm going to tidy up the wiring and make sure that everything is just protected and not going to get caught in anywhere. And then I'm going to bolt on the stock exhaust and run the cooling lines after that. You just want to make sure this wiring is protected, and on the stock Superjet there's a place here where you can zip tie it up to the top. Keep everything together and safe. Don't forget to put dielectric grease in any electrical connection. Keeps the water out, keeps the corrosion away. Alright, things are coming together. It's time to install the stock exhaust. Woohoo! B-pipes are impossible to get, so this is what we got. Putting some red Loctite on the exhaust bolts. When you mount the stock exhaust, you have to get to these hose clamps. One of them is going to be loose, so you tighten that one, make sure the other one's tight as well. And to get to it, I just kind of roll this on the inside like that. And now that I'm done and they're tight, I'm going to pull this back the way it was. And then I'm going to put the hose clamp on the outside. Okay, I finally got that thing wiggled on there. Now I just put the hose clamp on and we're good to go. Now I've got the small tube connected that goes from the cylinder head to the exhaust chamber. And the last thing I have to connect in the exhaust is actually the connection from the chamber to the water box. There's like a 45 on this side connects to the water box, I believe. And this side is more of a 90. This side connects to the chamber, as far as I know. All right, now the entire exhaust is mounted, all the cooling is set up, all the electrical's done. All I have to work on now is the fuel system. Put the battery box in, the fuel tank, the battery, and then I think we can run this thing. All right, it's a new day, and I'm getting really, really close to getting done with this ski. I just installed the fuel lines, and all I have to do now is install the fuel tank, button up a few things, make sure everything's good to go. And today's gonna be the first day that I start this engine. This engine's been sitting on the shelf for, I think, about 2 years. So let's see what it does, and then I'm gonna water test it. That'll be cool. On a side note, I use 2 different types of zip ties. I use the best quality that I can find, Tie Wrap brand, made in the USA, on the important stuff like fuel lines, cooling lines, anything that is especially important that it doesn't come off. I use these. And then just on like wire looms and stuff, I just use cheap Chinese or whatever zip ties. But it's important to use the good ones when you need them. Oh, and I'm super stoked. I found a OEM style fuel filter that fits in the OEM holder, this rubber piece. And I just riveted in the holder in here, so this thing is going to be perfect, and you don't have to worry about it flopping around or anything. It's held perfectly by a stainless bracket. I love these things. Hopefully this tank fits, because the hood lip makes things a little bit tighter, and the exhaust pipe is different from a B pipe, so let's see. Nice. Everything is now hooked up except for the fuel line from the filter to the tank. And then I just got to put the battery box in and hook the battery up and I can start this thing. Alright, the fuel system is fully installed, battery box, and battery time. I can't recommend a good set of flush cutters enough. They're amazing. Stu introduced them to me, and these things are so cool because they cut a zip tie completely flush with the end, so it's not going to cut you. Because there's always that little bit that's really sharp that'll cut you. Check this out. It also holds on to the end of the zip tie, so you don't have to go find it. Maybe everybody knew this existed, but I've only been using these for a couple years and they're amazing. I don't know. This brand is Xuron, Xuron. I don't know, but they're awesome. Battery box. Yeah, I use the OEM ones even in the surf. I've never broke one yet. Now this is something, if you haven't done, you need to do. Grind the tip of your screwdriver like this and it'll help you install the battery box. It'll save you a lot of time. What you do is you hook this on the strap and then you can just push the strap right down. Let's see if I can do it on camera. Wasn't the fastest I've ever done it, but don't forget this. Alright, hooking up the battery, very close. Getting really excited. Battery's hooked up, install this, and then put some gas in it and see if it starts. I don't have patience to run these by hand, so I'm gonna get something. Alright, I'm going to clean it up. The tray's full of junk. I'm going to put some fuel in it. We're going to take it outside and see if it runs. Ready to try it. That doesn't sound that great. Did it? Not much I can do.
I don't know. Do it again. Got a funny sound. Riley? What?
Yeah.
Why are you taking it back apart?
So this is what happened. We started it up. It started right away, but there's like this noise, not a good sound. So shut it off. I asked Stu, what do you think that is? Somehow we got on the topic of the, what are we talking about, the flywheel?
Yeah, the Bendix.
I go, what if, oh yeah, I said, what if it's just something stupid like the Bendix and it's not the crank or something really bad? Because this motor hasn't been ran in like 2 years. So I thought maybe it's the Bendix. And Stu goes immediately, he says, well, did you put the spring in? And I immediately said no. Because I know I didn't. And so right now we just removed the flywheel cover bolts. And I'm going to pull the flywheel cover off and see if there's a spring in there right here in this pocket, which pushes the Bendix back away from the flywheel when you're not running it. So it would make a really nasty noise if you leave out that spring. It's just going to sit on the back of the flywheel and grind. Hopefully there's no spring in here.
Let's find out.
No spring.
No spring.
No washers and no spring.
That's a lot better than a bad crankshaft bearing.
Oh, I'm still mad. But yeah, that's a mistake. I'm glad we caught it without running this thing though.
So did it mess up the Bendix at all? Does it look fine?
No. I don't see any metal shavings or anything.
Cool. Alright, well, let's get a spring in there.
Now I'm going to put this in correctly. So it's washer, spring, washer. And I just use some grease down in the hole to kind of hold things in place. That way, when you grab this thing, it just kind of holds everything together. So I got one down there, and then I'll just put a bunch of grease on there. That'll just hold it right where it is. That way when you tip this up, it doesn't come out. It's like a Dairy Queen shake or whatever, right?
I mean, think about it. What if there's still a rattle?
Shut up.
Let's see.
No more noises. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun making it. I hope you would consider subscribing and catch me in the next one where I load up my jet ski in my hatchback and I drive all the way to Montana to give it to my mom and stepdad. Saying goodbye to this ski is going to be really tough, but it'll stay in the family and I know it'll live forever. We'll see you in the next one. RSKI out.